And the most important part for me was understanding my role. And that was what I took from the class. And the second most important part for me was demystifying the actual act of the baby coming out of the birth canal. Because once we had seen it as many times as we see it, instead of being awestruck by just how amazing it is, then it's like, oh, my baby's going to come out that same way. Oh my God, my baby's going to come out and it's going to be like that. And then instead of it being scary, it's, I'm curious. I want to know. I can't wait to know. I look forward to this instead of being afraid.
Welcome to the Birth Education Center podcast, hosted by myself, Care Messer, an entrepreneur, birth educator, and doula. My team and I want to help you discover your options in birth and postpartum, how to find your voice, and how to use that voice to navigate our maternal healthcare system. You and your baby are not just a number. This information includes doulas too. Now let's get started. We have a special treat today because I have Kyle on, and Kyle is a 2-month-old dad who had his son just a brief minute ago. And I wanted to have him on because of the transformation I saw from week 1 of hypnobirthing to week 5, because it was a new human in front of me. And so I want him to talk about first what his perceptions were about class and birth preparation and home birth too, because they were a home birth couple. And then what he gathered in class that got him to the point of what I saw in class 5. But he's also going to talk to you guys about his experience as a male in the birth world, because you guys don't train for this, and he's in the military, so you know they don't train for that. Kyle, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So start from the beginning. Becca talked to me like early in her pregnancy alone, called me. You guys live in a different state than I do too. So I was really surprised when she actually followed through and signed up for class, because we had already connected and stuff like that. And then we had our pre-call, you and I said, are you ready for vagina class? And I think you were like, oh God, who is this person?
Yeah, it was interesting because she was pregnant beforehand, we miscarried, and we had gone down the midwife route. And I think both of us had felt abundantly ill-prepared for what was coming. And she miscarried before we got into the second trimester, but we had already dipped our toes into the Nevada healthcare system, as far as whether that was through the hospital or through the midwife that we originally chose. And when she got pregnant the second time, we had a much better community around us. And it was actually Caitlin Harrell, who had been doing work with you and had suggested to us that we take a birth class. And I know that you and Becca had corresponded at one point regarding how to deal with the fear of the miscarriage, and then how to move forward in the best way for yourself and for your baby, knowing that had happened, and how to proceed with it. And I remember we were sitting in bed and she had read to me through tears what you had wrote to her. And I was like, hey, this lady is pretty cool. She said the right thing to my wife, and my wife feels better. Fast forward, we lived in Fallon, Nevada, which is about an hour and a half outside of a major metropolitan city, to where we had to go to do our midwife appointments, had to do all the ultrasounds, all the other stuff there. And she's like, let's listen to midwife podcasts. And like, okay. So she threw on one of the birth stories, and I remember about a quarter of the way through it, I was like, can we listen to a crime podcast or something? And then she's like, hold on, I have this other one. And she turned on your podcast that was talking about the five elements of birth. Yep. And I'm a dog handler, and I have a dog training business. And so touching animal psychology was super personal to me, because I get to see almost every day how similar our psychology is to animals. And so I think you call it lizard brain, getting in touch with your lizard brain and talking about the elements of safety and darkness and all of it, and how it starts to affect everything about birth. And I was like, I'm bought in. You got it. I get it. I love it. And
I work with mammals every day. This is all exactly how it works. Yes. Yep. It's so simple. That's the thing. Why don't we go back to the basics of how we have frickin' inhabited the planet.
Right.
Like,
And we're not even that far from having to like follow those principles. If you think about it, the Oregon Trail happened 200 years ago. There's no readily available healthcare for birthing mothers, and it was the community aspect of it. It's the safety. It's the, even as they found themselves in new places, like we had just finished watching the Yellowstone spinoff where they'd gone from East Coast to the West Coast, and I was taken aback by how recently that was and where we are now. And it's like evolution doesn't happen that fast. Like our brains, our bodies don't change that fast. And so there has to be so much about that time then that is still important to us now that we've just forgotten about because we have these modern comforts and we outsource all of our discomfort to just being disinterested in the process. And that's not how that's supposed to be. So listening to that podcast and was probably the saving grace of why she's like, let's do this birthing class. Also, my wife undersold what the birthing class was. She told me it was 3 hours and it was one day. She didn't tell me it was 3 hours
brilliant.
for 5 weeks. Oh, she's done this to me multiple times.
Because if I tell him it's 15 hours and we're going to sit 3 hours a week, he's going to be like, hell nah, not doing it.
You're going to have to do what? And I have to listen. Oh, and then here's why I say it was the saving grace, because in the first birth story podcast she had played, I heard you say yummy, and I was like, nope. I'm good.
This is too creepy for me. Nope. She said yummy with birth. I'm out.
I paused it and I looked at her and I go, what? She goes, just listen. I'm like,
oh, we need to work on her salesman skills is all we need to work on. That's it.
Yeah. There's no way she would have known that I would have been like, excuse me? So fast forward to the first class and sitting there, and I went from the perspective of this is going to be mostly for her to, it was by the end of the first class, I wished that I could be pregnant. I had to remind myself at the end of the class that this is mostly for her. And I was like, oh, I wish I could do that. I don't really. After birth, I'm happy in my
after
role.
Watching it.
Yeah, after watching it, I feel I did good in my role, and I'm going to stick to my role, and I will gladly support her in hers.
But I love that you wanted to share that experience, because that first class opened your eyes to, wow, like this is an experience of once in a lifetime bringing my baby into the world. It's a human experience I shouldn't skip.
Yep. So it was basically from the first to the third class to where I bought in, like fully bought into what my role was. You gave me purpose in the process. And I think that because it's so outsourced, like birth is so outsourced, that everybody's like, nope, I'm going to do my part. I'm not going to let you ask questions. You don't really have a say in much of anything. This is what you guys are going to do because I told you that. And this is what I'm going to do. And you don't really have a say in it. Bye. That was basically what my first OB appointment with her was like. But through having our doula, through having the midwife, having the class that we went through, realizing it's not only my process to buy into and to find my role and understand my role, but this is the beginning of us. And all of that is going to be guided by how the birth went. I could have not shown up and that would have set the tone for the rest of it. I could have been too nervous and overbearing and that would have showed up for the rest of it, or at least in the rest of how this has shown up so far, because I feel that one of the first things that you advised us of is figure out your shit, figure it out now, because once he comes, you're not going to have the opportunity to in the same that you would in this moment, because you have something else to pour your life into. And we kind of took that to heart, sat down, had a couple of pretty serious conversations about understanding like, hey, intrinsically, I need to feel respected. I need to feel like I have purpose, and I don't feel that right now. And then she gave her turn. Intrinsically, she needed to feel emotionally supported and heard, and she didn't feel that. Okay, how do we meet? Because it's almost as if what we want's juxtaposing each other at the moment. And we need to figure it out because nothing's going to be the same. And on top of having a newborn, we moved across the country. I got out of the military. I'm starting a different career and all of these other things. So it wasn't just the baby was coming. It was everything's going to be different and we needed to figure it out. And so starting with that, it was, again, that buy-in. 1 through 3 was like, no, this is awesome. I love this. This is great. And then it was either class 3 or class 4 where I went, oh, it is yummy. And I think it was 3.
It was part of 3 and then for sure by 4. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to give anything too much away, but the class where we were practicing the birthing positions, I whispered in her ears, let's just turn the camera off. She was, God, stop.
And you won't be the first one. Most of them do turn the cameras off, and I know what's going on, and it's totally fine.
I mean, how magical is that? Because I grew up in a family of Western medicine. My uncle is a very prominent dermatological surgeon in the area. And it was always just kind of like a don't really ask questions, doctors know best, where the dad didn't do anything with the birth. And that's just like all I had seen was TV. And then by class 4, I was like, not only am I into it, like this is hot. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to catch my baby. I'm so excited. We had seen probably 15 or 18 births by
Probably
then.
a lot. Yeah, I show a lot.
And that was the most important part for me, because my job before I left the military was basically to stress people out enough to the point where when they encountered real world stress, they could still problem solve.
What a job. Stressing people out. We need it, but what a job, Kyle.
Yeah, it's fun. It's in the scope of you start it small and then you increase it, because we're canine handlers, and so like explosive detection and like apprehensions and stuff, it's necessary to be able to think clearly when you have an animal that's going to do something wild, and you have to be there to observe and watch it. That's the same thing with what I feel had happened throughout the birthing class. It's called stress inoculation. It's the like, it's gonna happen. Oh, there's a head. Everybody's calm. Baby comes out. Times 15, and then by the time we're at the dolphins, then it's like, that's so fucking cool. Like, oh my God.
Just so everybody knows, our listeners know, I do show a dolphin birth. That is, the woman and the man are hanging off the edge of a boat and give birth with dolphins in the water off the coast of Spain. It's a phenomenal birth. I have some strange ties to that birth, but yeah, it is eye-opening, because everyone's like, should I do that at SeaWorld? I could probably do that at SeaWorld.
Yeah. That's always the funny part, is like, once we got to the point where I could call people and I was like, did you know that this can happen and everything's fine? And they're like, no, that's crazy. I was like, we are woefully misinformed on how this process goes. And the most important part for me was understanding my role. And that was what I took from the class. And the second most important part for me was demystifying the actual act of the baby coming out of the birth canal. Because once we had seen it as many times as we see it, instead of being awestruck by just how amazing it is, then it's like, oh, my baby's going to come out that same way. Oh my God, my baby's going to come out and it's going to be like that. And then instead of it being scary, I'm curious. I want to know. I can't wait to know. I look forward to this instead of being afraid. And I'm sure that was part of what you watched happen with me too. But I don't know how we got as lucky as we did to have our doula that we had, our midwife team that we had. Because of our dog training business, we met Caitlin, and because we met Caitlin, we got introduced to the birthing class. And I know for a fact that had life turned out a little bit different, things would have gone very different. And I know that you and the class that we went through with the people we went through were just extremely instrumental.
It's not a coincidence. Timing with this world, if you can just be in awe of how things line up to get us to where we need to go and the people that need to slot in, it's absolutely amazes me every single day. And it's one of the sexiest things that I watch, especially with the couples that come together. It's never wrong. If there's only 4 couples, that is exactly how that class is supposed to be. If there's 8 and then a 9th squeezes in, it's because that's the class they need to be in, and just watch it unfold, because there's no coincidence. There's no coincidence.
Special.
And I have a question for you too, because you guys, when we have the last part of our class 5, I have everybody talk about what worries and perceptions they had before they came into class, and then what they're leaving with, what skills they're leaving with. And obviously Kyle was like, you said yummy, you're a freak, to, oh my gosh, now I'm saying yummy, now I'm the freak. And he was so excited to welcome his son into the world. They were having a home birth. They were the only couple in the class having a home birth. Plus, they were also going to be having it at their midwife's house, an hour and a half away, right? So not only are they leaving to go to the hospital, but it's really somebody's house, right? And have this baby. It was a totally different kind of experience, which next week we're going to be listening to their birth story. So you get to hear both of these back to back. But as I watched you two in class, even for what you were learning, and I could see that you were transforming, your bonding and connection became almost palpable. Can you tell me, was it the part of, for one, you listened to what I said, which I'm like so flattered that you'd actually go, let's dive into the bullshit that we have in our relationship and sort through it, because most people don't want to do that. And that makes the first year postpartum even harder, and the second year, because you still haven't addressed what is not congruent between us. And now we're raising a kid. It takes the sting out of parenthood if you can work on that ahead of time. But I noticed, and I didn't know what you were doing, but I noticed that almost like the fog was gone. You guys were lighter, you were more connected, you were giggly, you would take time to look at each other and think things through as some topic would come up in class, and I knew you were going to go home and talk about it. So tell dads, tell a partner what kind of things that you walked through to be that vulnerable with her.
I think it's like the curse of 1,000 cuts whenever you go into a relationship and you lie to yourself a little bit that it doesn't really matter, it's not worth bringing up, or I disagree with what she said, but it's not worth facing the consequence of disagreeing. I was married before I'd gotten divorced, and I learned enough from that relationship to know that I can't live with 1,000 cuts. However, still knowing that, and going into my relationship with my wife now, you still accept cuts. And there's ones that you can't. Like, it's a checks and balance.
Right. You don't want to hurt somebody with your perception of, oh, that was a stupid move, and hurt their feelings. But at the same time, you're like, ooh, that was really hurtful. How do I approach this later so we can talk about it without making her feel like she's a horrible person? It goes both ways. We both do that in relationship. You're absolutely answering it, because if we can come into a relationship talk where we need to sort things out with the premise of, I love you more than anything. I'm with you for a reason. I'm going to be here no matter what. And the other person comes in with the exact same intention. It's okay to shuffle out the feelings that are, but I feel resentful here, I'm sad here, because we're bringing in patterns from our parents, right, into relationship. We're bringing in patterns from previous relationships. We're bringing in self-esteem. We're bringing in all the stuff that we sugarcoat so that we can be together, and we brush under the rug. But there's always that, what if he or she leaves me because I'm not enough? Or what if I leave them because I can't handle their bullshit anymore? Instead of, what if we talk about it, sort it out, and get some emotional intelligence going on here, so that from now on we can tell each other anything and work through anything, even when it's hard. Yeah. And that gives you the freedom in the relationship to be like, I love you, I trust you, do your thing. You can have separate interests. You can be with people that you're thinking, oh, do I dare do this? I'm nervous about XYZ. You can, because you've already sorted out the trust issues by having conversations that are so vulnerable, you could dissolve the relationship with how vulnerable they are. And when they don't dissolve, it only enhances that relationship. But it's our biggest fear that he or she's going to leave me if I actually come clean with who I am and how I'm feeling right now. And they're feeling the exact same way. It's just human nature.
I have a funny example. So she's like, just do something sometimes. And I hold my tongue because I don't want to hurt you. And I was like, I have to know. But she's said it multiple times before. I was like, I have to know. What is it? Just let it out. She's like, I'm just going to call you an asshole.
Okay.
Okay.
You don't think I've
like,
never been called that before?
You don't think I acknowledge that I'm being an asshole? Like,
oh, I love it. She's too scared to
Yeah.
just call it like it is.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
call it like it is. I'm okay with that.
And that was kind of where we were trying to get to. Like, again, I was talking about the nobility of you're trying to spare other people's feelings for whatever it may be. It's like, at the same time, if you just try and gentle your way through when I'm being an asshole, there's nothing that's going to snap me out of it because you're letting me do it. And it's not saying like I have my own accountabilities to it, but in my first relationship, my first marriage, I learned that I am just as responsible for enabling the behaviors as she was for doing them. And because I was accepting it, and it was either I could have not accepted it and she would have stopped, or she would have continued to do it, and our relationship would have not lasted 5 years, and I would have been spared being. It ended unsavourly, and those things happened early on. So everybody talks about there's the 3-year phenomenon in marriage where things start to get tough, like you come to a head, and that was where we were at. Like we hit our 3rd year of marriage July 4th, and he came September 1st. So it was in that moment of, all right, the honeymoon phase is good and well gone. We've been through some awful things together, and I'm tired of feeling this way, but I haven't said it to you because I know you've gone through hard stuff yourself, and there was no nobility in that because there was no way for her to help her. This is the worst thing that couples do. They make adjustments to the relationship based off of what they think the other person wants without asking.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I do all of this stuff for you. It's like, that's not what I need. I need you to not speak to me in this way. I don't need you to do my dishes. I don't need you to do my laundry. I'm perfectly capable of doing that. The support that I need is I want you to smile at me when I walk in the house because I want to feel the warmth. I want to want to come home. I want to feel this belonging to you. I want to feel important to you. And I understand that's what you're trying to do by doing the dishes and having the house clean. That's not what I want, because then by the time I get home, you're fucking exhausted from doing your job, from being 8 months pregnant, from trying to take care of the dogs, and from doing all of this extra stuff that I've told you I'm happy to do for you. I want you to smile. I want you to tell me you love me. I want you to give me a hug. I want to connect with you for 5 seconds before we go on to the long list. And she started doing that. And
I
could not wait to go home.
Isn't it simple? Like,
it's so easy.
But we clean the house and we do all that stuff, and we're like showing you that we care. And you're like, yeah, you could have just slapped me on the ass and said hi, and I would have been so okay with the dishes not being done. Right?
Again, there comes with the grace, right? Like, I come home and I see that all that stuff is done, and I know that's what she was trying to do to make me feel supported. And it's like, hey, the house looks great, thank you. And she's looking like, I'm so tired. And it's like, hey, I'm gonna step back outside. I'm gonna give you a second. I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna smile at you and say thank you again. And you're gonna say you're welcome and say hi. And then that's what we did. It's like, I love you so much, and thank you for all of this that you've done. One little tidbit I want to add is that there's a podcast with Andrew Huberman in a relationship specialist. I don't know. She might have been something specifically with children and communication, but it was Andrew Huberman and this other woman, and they talked about communicating in rewards and punishments. So I hate that you did that. Why did you just say that to me that way? Versus if you put as much energy into doing that, telling the other person, I don't like that you did that. I don't like this, that, and the other. It's like, I sit there and I see that she's smiling. May not have even been at me. I love your smile. They're going to do it a lot more. And then also on top of that, like when you take the time to search out for the positives in the relationship, you see them a lot more. It's the same phenomenon. It's like you buy a certain type of car, and then all of a sudden you notice that everybody in the city has that same exact car when you haven't noticed it before. We're very simple creatures, and being able to tap into the parts of our lizard brain that are just there because they're there. It's like biohacking biohacking an emotion just to be able to make life easier because it's hard enough as it is. And then when your wife's going through all these changes that she's got no frame of reference for, and all these emotional and hormonal changes, and you're trying to figure out your role in it. And sometimes people don't have it. And it's kind of what I want to talk about, with the little tidbit to the ads, but it's not as difficult. We make it overcomplicated. We think that we're doing a better job at saving the other person when in all actuality it's just you have to touch the hard stuff because it's still there. It's always going to be there. And if you try to chip away at a mountain with a sand shovel like a beach toy, you're not going to do any work. You got to hit the dynamite, you got to hit the explosives, you got to touch stuff that's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt for a while. But when you don't know that all that ugly stuff's there, there's no way to address it. You're not going to get to it with a beach tool. That's not how that works.
And the bottom line is we're just so afraid to lose the other person that we hold it all in. And if we can come from the fact that we're both vulnerable and that we don't want to lose the other person, how can I say this to you in the most caring and loving way that still lets you know I love you, but you're freaking driving me nuts, or it's hurting me because that's how my dad treated me, or that's how my mom treated me, or whatever it is, because we come in with our whole package that we can't really explain until we're up against in a relationship, which is why we are mirrors for each other. And if we can come with love being behind the mirror and being like, ooh, that's an ugly part of me, I don't want to see it, because it's really about us. It's not about the other person. Why is it bothering me so much? Ooh, because I do that. It's not the other person. It's us. And if we can come to it in love with each other, it's a totally different ballgame.
That's a fun game to sit there and ask the other person, all right, so this is what's bothering you. Think about why. This is not you. This is not a normal behavior for you. What is it from your past that makes this hurt so bad? Because I'm not intending to hurt you, and I don't know why it hurts you so bad. So then it's easier for us to understand on the opposite side. Like, well, that happened for 14 years as a child, and they felt emotionally abandoned, and now we are making them feel emotionally abandoned. And again, it's the whole having a function or purpose within the relationship. For men specifically, we need to protect, and the emotional side of the wife is also something to protect. And so having those conversations about why does this set you off? Because it makes them feel unsafe. Like, all right, cool. Well, now that I know that, I would like to figure out how to change this. And sometimes that doesn't mean that you stop doing the thing that you're doing. Realistically, like touching and moving things around from the past. Hey, please understand that this is something that I'm going to do because it is the function that I feel I'm playing in our relationship. I am going to make these decisions when there's time critical decisions to be made. We will talk about it later. And if we need to readjust, we can readjust. But I am going to make the decision now.
No, because your job, you feel like I am to provide and protect you. And also, I'm safeguarding my own feelings. So how do we come together? That's the part about sorting stuff out. We don't know until we actually take the risk to do it. And I want to remind my listeners, he's not a therapist, but he sounds like he's been in therapy for 30 years.
Yeah.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. What would be your number one thing you would tell dads or partners to help them prepare for parenthood by working on the emotional part of their relationship?
Stoicism, being steady in your reaction, is going to start with the other person and how it affects them. And then we all have these pillars that we fit within the relationship. Ours is not the emotional side. So being able to understand the emotions of the other part of the party and being able to be critical in our decisions and how we support and provide our wife is going to allow them to be the emotional pillar that they are supposed to be for our children, because we don't have the capacity to do it. We don't. That's why, like, physiologically, we provide different roles. You guys make an entirely new organ in order for your child to come along. Guess what? We don't do that. We have a few moments of fun, and then we support for 9 months, and then we're here to do something else. Like, it's
just different roles.
Be what you're supposed to be. And if your dynamic in your family is such that like everybody has to support, then you have to also understand that like when it comes time for you to enable her to be the emotional pylon, you have to step back and let her do it. So
what I'm hearing you saying is you need to let her feel safe enough to express her emotions in any way they come out
Yep.
without a reaction, but giving a response.
Yep.
Because that's what keeps her in a place of safety to express. And then you have time to sort things out to express as well.
There was a period of time where we would drive home from appointments where something didn't go the exact way we wanted it to. And she would be sitting there and crying. And it's like, do you want me to sit in this with you? Or do you want me to talk through it? And then whenever it was usually, let's sit in this for about 10 minutes. And so it's like, okay, I would share my sad parts of it too, instead of trying to fix it. And then when she got all of it out, she'd sit there and look at me and it's like, but can I tell you my hopeful side of this? And sometimes yes, sometimes no. And then whenever I got to say it, it was all the side of, there's no expectation of you to change how you feel about this because I don't understand what you're going through. But we have a happy, healthy baby that we are providing for. He is so cute. And every day we are making the decision towards what we think is best. And sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong. But as long as we keep on trying, that's what we are here to do. And not failing because we are doing that. But the cards that we dealt with. And that was a repetitive conversation. You want to sit? You want to sit in this? All right, let's sit in this. All right, can I tell you what I think is the hopeful side of this? We are doing the best that we can.
That's the best parenting advice ever, because you can only make decisions at that moment with the information you have.
Yep.
Do it together, move forward, see where the chips lie. Because it's the only thing that is absolute in a relationship, whether it's parenting or a relationship, is change. That is the constant. Everything else is just, oh, it's good for a second, but the constant change is what we actually can depend on. That's the best parenting advice and relationship advice. Kyle, maybe you should go back and get that degree. I don't know what you've transitioned into, but I think there's more for that than just teaching people how to take care of their dogs, because I know you're not a dog trainer. You're a human trainer, because I have had dog trainers before. And it's like, the dogs are smarter than you. I'm like, yes, they are. I know. I'm the one that needs the training. I want to thank you for being here. Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we wrap up and then the listeners get to hear your birth story?
Yeah. This is the important part for the men and the women. For the men, this is your wife's experience. This is your partner's experience. You are important in your own way, but if you are going to make decisions for her on how this is going to go, you better be informed on it, and you better be making these decisions out of safety. Because that's what we're here for. We're the clear-headedness. So for instance, if your wife wants to do a home birth and you say, no, it's unsafe, be educated. There's a study done by Harvard where the only state that specifies the difference between planned and unplanned home birth is Oregon. The difference in infant mortality between planned home birth and hospital is like 1.2%. But within that difference, it doesn't specify whether it's the people that are doing the like completely no help from anybody free birth, or if they have certified midwives, if they have doulas. That doesn't clarify what type of resources they have, if they are avoiding the hospital because they don't have medical insurance or whatever it may be, like if they're doing a home birth because that is the cheaper option for them, whatever it may be. There's no delineation in that small percentage difference. So to say that it is infinitely more dangerous is naive. And I'm just saying that. I'm not trying to insult you. You're just misinformed.
Yeah, because there's a lot of studies that talk about that. Yeah.
Right. The difference between unnecessary medical intervention from planned home birth to hospital birth is 25+%. And I'm close on the percentages. If you look up the study, it's from Harvard, and you will be able to look at the statistics that I'm talking about. To say that it is dangerous to do that is wrong. Knowing the experience that I had in between the OB that we went to, and I'm sure she is great. However, I asked 3 questions our first appointment. The first one she answered, the second one she stood up, went to the door, and the third one she was out in the hallway when she answered. All of my midwife appointments were over an hour long, and they advocated for me to ask questions. They had me look up stuff because I grew up in Western medicine. This isn't something that I was used to. This is not the platform that I am used to. And so I had a lot of questions, and I learned a lot of stuff. And then I also learned that I needed to know more because it was my job to protect. So know the difference. If you're making a decision because it is truly not in the best interest of your family, please make that decision. But also don't take that away from your wife if this is the experience that she wants to have. Because again, you're not the one that's pushing the baby out of your vagina. So simmer down. Secondly, in that same token, this is your wife's experience, and listen to Care's podcast about the 5 elements of birth. We even experienced it, like the phenomenon of somebody's in your house, as soon as they leave, you go into labor. So like in-laws are in your house because they're expecting the due date, baby to come by the due date, and then that date comes and goes, and then those in-laws leave, and then all of a sudden,
somebody feels safe enough to go into labor. Yeah, as mammals, we protect our young, and that could be anything. I'm not comfortable with the time of day. I'm not comfortable with the date. I'm not comfortable with the OB. I'm not comfortable with the midwife. I'm not comfortable with my mom. We intrinsically protect our young. So it is a phenomenon. Mammals, cows do it. If there's a predator, you think they're going to plop a baby out and be in the most vulnerable position they can be in? Nope. They're going to stop labor and hold that baby in.
yep, yep. And so I don't know about you guys. I don't like being in hospital. And if you're doing birth with your partner, then you're going to be uncomfortable the whole time. There's a picture of us in the birthing tank where Becca realized afterwards that they had put a cold towel on my forehead. And because I hate baths, and the birthing tank is 105 degrees, and I'm just sweating my ass off in there doing the hip squeezes. And she's like, "What? You needed a cold towel?" I was like, "Sweetheart, I was going to pass out. Like I was on the heating element." And so she was literally passing out in between contractions. So I would do the hip squeezes, and then as soon as it was done, well, she would crumple and fall asleep. And so like, you're going to be uncomfortable the whole time if you're doing birth right. You should be uncomfortable the whole time. And so there's a difference between being in a hospital. If you don't have a choice, like this isn't for you. This is the conversation of the husbands that are like, I don't want to do a home birth because it's unsafe. It scares me. It's easier and more comfortable for you to, one, be comfortable in the amount of time that you're going to be going through labor. And the second to that is, wouldn't you rather know everybody that's going to be there for your birth? And then third, doulas are amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I'm the type of person, I want to do it. Like I want to be there. But when you're in labor for 23 and a half hours, you can't do it the whole time. So having somebody else there that, one, has been through it, knows specifically where on her body it hurts while she's going through what she's going through, and being able to guide me, and it's like, all right, nope, not there, lower, and then this is how you should be pushing. And because this is all a big puzzle. There's the pieces that fit together. There's your OB/midwife team. There's your doula, and then there's the birth education, that the whole total encompassing birth education that you need to do beforehand, just because you can't show up on game day and just be woefully ill-prepared, because it's a lot. It's so much.
It's so much.
But I got to the end of it, and it's so funny. Everybody asks you, like, that you were so overwhelmed during the birth. It's like, no, like I knew exactly what I was supposed to be doing, and I knew what she was going to be going through, and I got to meet my baby at the end of it. Like, I'm cool as a cucumber until things went sideways, but that's a story for later. I like to think, because she's alluded to it, but I like to think that also my wife found a different respect for me that day. Like, I showed up and I stayed there, and we had a lot of conversations beforehand of what does she think she wants. And then when things didn't really go that way, I didn't get frustrated. It's like, all right, like you're going through getting your lizard brain, homie. Like I'm going to offer you water and electrolytes and snacks and rub your back and figure out what it is that you need from me in this moment. And then I'm going to try to continue to do that without you having to ask me, which is what she had said. I don't want to explain to you what I need. I need you to just offer stuff and I'll say yes or no. I'm like, easy enough.
That's what good birth preparation does, right?
Yeah. But that's my thing to the dads. If you're going to make a decision on the most surreal thing that your wife will ever get to do. You better have a reason for it, and better be educated on what that reason is. It is your charge as a husband to keep your family safe. They should be safe. Outside of that, if you're going to be misinformed and limit your wife from getting to experience the thing that she wants to experience, then that's messed up. Don't be that guy. Have a serious conversation with it. Have a serious conversation with them. Understand why they want to do it, and make sure that they want to do it for the right reasons, and be there for them through that, because it's a process. It's always going to be a process. It's going to be a process whether you go into a hospital, and let me tell you, it's not going to be as fun. We were laughing at our birth. Like, we had a great time, and I'm sure there's nurses and OBs that are awesome. But I got to do it at a really nice house, or if you do it at your own house, if you get to do it at your own house and you get to know the people and have an intimate relationship with people that are going to bring your baby into this world, and then you don't have to go anywhere. You're still at home. That sounds pretty nice to me. But like, just the most important part is our appointments were an hour long. I had probably close to 18 hours of access to the people that I needed to ask questions to. And I got to ask them as many questions as I had. That's worth its weight in gold.
There's a big difference between midwifery care and the medical model.
Yeah.
Like a huge difference. There really is.
I have one last thing. Wives, give your husband a purpose in the birth. If he doesn't have a purpose in it, he's going to be checked out because you don't let him be a part of it. You need the purpose too.
And I think you get that in birth class, right?
Absolutely.
I think we short sell ourselves with birth education in that, how many hours is it and what shows am I going to be missing if I go? Because we don't value what actually can take place in there. And there's a variety of different kinds of classes you can take. You need to find the right educator for you that can keep you guys entertained as well as educate, and also the right method for you, because there's different kinds. There's a hospital class that might be phenomenal, and then an out of hospital class might be meh, because you haven't done the research to see who your vibe is. But once you find that education, that's what opens up the doors to, oh my gosh, I'm a part of this experience. It's a once in a lifetime experience. Why wouldn't I prepare? And how do I make this so connected and so protected that we come out the other side different people? Instead of everyone else knows what they're doing, we're just going to be along for the ride for the greatest human experience you're ever going to experience. Why would you give up that control? And why would you let everybody else make those decisions that you will be living with for the rest of your life?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I love it. Get informed, because there is a difference between home birth statistics and hospital statistics. And obviously, if you're high medical needs, you need to be at the high medical needs place. Absolutely 100%. Yes. But I think we just think all of us are like that, when 98% of us are not like that. And we just don't have a system where it's paid for. And I also get that, because home birth is expensive, but also what's your 20% you're going to owe at the hospital? Because I've had families where they're like, oh my gosh, we paid more for our copay than I would have for a whole home birth situation. I'm like, I know. And I understand that. Sometimes on the first birth, they're like, just in case, I want to do it so that I make sure everything's okay. And then they have some major regrets because they didn't get a doula, they didn't get educated, and they didn't realize that maybe some of the stuff that was going to go on there wasn't what they would have planned for their birth if they just taken a little more education and gotten connected and figured that out ahead of time. And I don't want anyone to have regrets. And you can have beautiful hospital births, but you've got to get educated and you've got to get on the same page. Makes a huge difference.
Massive.
All right, everybody, you get to hear Kyle and Becca's birth story next week. So we will see you next week. Thanks for joining us today. And remember, it's your body, your choice, and finding your voice is your power. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us in all the places, and go to birtheducationcenter.com for our blog and more online education classes. And we'll see you next week.